Yeah, welcome to another edition of the MC65 podcast. We are joined today by Carsten Malbeck, and and we talk about awesome topics from Link, Teams, Skype for Business, Zip, Team Voice, and Microsoft Rooms. There's a lot of we can talk today. But we will see a little bit the evolution of Teams and look what's the reality of enterprise voice using, and how we use AI today in Teams. So welcome, Carsten. Can you, for the people that don't know you, a little bit tell about your
Yeah,
uh
sure.
yeah thank
And thanks for having me. My name is Carsten Malbeck, and I am a Microsoft Teams MVP. And I pretty much work with everything related to Teams UC, meaning that everything with voice, everything with meeting, and of course, none of us can get out of that. We also work with some kind of AI and Copilot in some kind of way. So yeah. And I can say, like, historically, I started with being a PBX guy, playing around with the wires and so on, and worked for providers. So my background is deeply in regular telephony, in old school telephony, PBXs and so on. So, yeah. And yeah, had the journey all the way up. So
yeah, you started with Link, then Skype for Business, and now Microsoft Teams. What fascinating on the topic unified communications.
yeah, it is. I mean, it's quite a journey, and not many know it, but I was actually also involved shortly on live communication when Microsoft was trying to get the first thoughts on telephony in it, but uh, due to change of job and so on, I didn't fulfill that part. But yeah, it's been a great journey. I was working with PBXs, and I was actually doing quite well. I think we did some really cool installation, and we thought that, hey, we were on top of the hill, and then suddenly Microsoft begins to appear and having a dial tone in, and I thought, okay, what's going on here? And I mean, the functionality. Let's face it, in the beginning of Link or OCS, for that matter, they were quite limited. I mean, you kind of could take a call and you could transfer. You couldn't do anything, and I thought, okay, that's never going to be enterprise grade. But again, I was curious on it, and a rather big consulting company in Scandinavia addressed me and said, "Hey, Carsten, you want to come and play around with us and be our telephony guy because we want to look into Link." And that's kind of where it started with Microsoft. So yeah, everything around him with his actually border controllers to get it right in third-party application and so on. So that's the journey into Microsoft.
Mm, awesome, and you're doing it for so long time. What keeps you passionate about team voice and meeting solutions today?
Well, I think the idea is that as long as you can, I mean, I do a lot of teaching, I do a lot of speaking all over, and that's just kind of give a lot of energy that say, hey, I can tell people about how cool stuff is, and I mean, it's an area that just keep on coming with new stuff. I mean, even though we thought that, okay, telephony is kind of on a downhill and nothing really happens, a lot of cool stuff's gonna come here for the next half a year with Microsoft, and a lot of cool AI stuff. And we begin to see Microsoft have their own contact center in Dynamics 365 and so on. So I mean, it's just an area where I thought, okay, now we cannot get any more out of it. It keeps on adding new cool functionalities into it. So yeah, so that's kind of what keeps the drive on it. That something new is always happening, and you need to be sharp on it. So yeah.
Awesome. When we look a little bit back, so is there something where you say, "Oh, this was awesome in the Link days"? Is there something you miss? Or is there something you are happy that's gone?
I mean, I think a lot of us that are doing Teams Voice are missing the good old days where we have our Skype and Link pools and we have our on-premise servers and so on. I think that's kind of the legacy thoughts that a lot of server guys were having to, because I mean, even though we were not really server guys, but we were still depending on local hardware and tools and on upgrading those and be in charge of that one. And okay, does everything works? And when we do a migration or anything like that or an upgrade, there's a lot of stuff that could go wrong that, okay, planned anything and so on. I mean, I kind of miss that part because I mean it gives a different uh, action level into the job where you can say today where everything is the cloud. I mean, we don't have any maintenance support. We don't have anything, updates and so on. Things are just coming, and we are in different waves. And yeah, as being a Microsoft MVP, of course, we get knowledge before and so on. So I kind of miss that part where we had the hands more down in the code and in the configuration. So yeah.
Yeah. So some people say there was Skype for business. I don't know. It's yeah. Uh, sorry. And yeah, it's a yeah. It's I think it's a dead product. you know. But but what there? Yeah, and the people say okay, Teams and Skype Business was the same product, but they have to migrate. Have you some
Yeah, I mean,
story?
the kind of migration path was interesting because I mean in the beginning we had Skype on premise and all were good, and we began to see more and more in 365. We saw the B post, and we saw all that exchange were becoming more and more online, and of course we saw the same there. And at that point it was not Teams, it was Skype for Business Online. And we saw the beginning of building this cloud journey that Microsoft was on, but it was still based on a product that was created and coded for on-prem. So of course there was a lot of challenges, let's say it like that. There were a lot of changes on it. A lot of our HA setup was kind of on premise in a box. We had like, if you made a survival brands, you had like an Hyper-V running a couple of servers, the domain controllers, and so on, pretty much an on-prem installation. So there was some ups and downs in the beginning of the cloud journey. And yeah, that gave some challenges. I love them. I mean, that was what kept me going, was that, hey, make this one stable, you've got to make this one fix. Uh, how can we bend it a little more? Because I mean, let's face it, we were on lack of options. We were on lack of features. I mean, the feature set was very limited on it. We were relying on a lot of third-party application and get those to work together. I mean, contact center or attendant consoles and so on. So I mean, that there were lots of up and down, but in my world, that was make it really exciting. Then, of course, as we know that everything was escalating, and Microsoft was introducing Teams, which was really cool. I think I joked in the beginning, say, yeah, it's just a shortcut portal, because everything we did in there was kind of like just starting another application. But I could see the Microsoft made it for real and put more and more things in it, and the journey from Skype online to Teams was again really exciting. Again, we had problems with parity of functionality, and how do you measure which functionality is where and what, and all the challenges we have in that migration period. Because I mean, you probably remember that if you had a meeting, was that in Skype for Business or was it in Teams? Where do we do what, and what clients do we have to be in, and if we were chatting back and forth between the platforms, if you were talking with external, was it coming to a Skype client or was it coming to Teams clients? Again, a lot of challenges and a lot of adoptions where you need to get the users to understand how things were working, so they could get a problem-free workday. Um, Again, a lot of interesting stuff was going on in that period of time. So yeah.
And what did you think when we are say on-prem systems? So, what was the biggest mind shift to go in the cloud, say Teams environments? What was the how we have or how did companies rethink this? What was the biggest change?
I think the biggest change was kind of a forced change, because I mean, everybody was used to the on-prem environment, and company was beginning migrating the mails out and get Teams on it. But then we had, this terrible coronavirus that was coming, and that kind of made a huge push where a lot of companies didn't have the option to say we want to do a soft migration. It was like, we need to get this one to working now, and what options do we have? And at that time, well, team was there. Was it fully ready? Was it full modern? Probably not, but it has to be because I mean the world was changing. So that kind of why should we go from a on-prem installation to a cloud solution like you do in other products and so on, where you have a long preparation and you have a lot of testing and so on. That kind of got speeded up in a time 10 speed because I mean the world changed. We need a platform where we can meet, be together, communicate back and forth. And I mean, of course, you can do that in Skype for Business. There's just a lot of limitation, and a lot of companies were not ready to have homework because I mean, all workers were sent home, so you were just facing different challenges. I mean, are your connections ready for it? I mean, do you have enough bandwidth? What about VPN license and so on? And a lot of stuff like that you can get out of with connecting directly up to the Teams cloud. So I mean, we kind of missed that step that a lot of other company or other products was working on it. That kind of had a fast track on it. But yeah, of course, afterwards, some of them that were not migrating right away, you have a lot of testing and rolling back and forth and see what's going on. But for the majority of companies I was working with, the base license was kind of COVID that pushed that one ahead.
If you could back, I say, 10 years and give the 2006 Carsten advice about collaboration platforms, what would it be?
Do what you do. Uh, I was actually lucky, and I think it was more a coincidence than it's yeah and luck. I was beginning looking into meeting rooms before COVID, and I met up with a guy from Poly, now HP, and he showed me some of the hardware, and I totally fell in love with it. So okay, that's my next area I need to look into. So I hit that one. So I, I don't think I will have I don't think I've done anything different. And I know that kind of sound a little self because I mean, of course, I've burned and make some bad decisions and so on, but that's where we are learning. I'm pretty happy and pleased with the way that I kept on focusing on Teams voice and adding the meeting part into to what I'm doing now. Because I mean, I don't have as long history with Teams meetings as I have with the voice part. I mean, I didn't do much in Sky for Business, and before when it was seat meetings and so on. I mean, I was certified. I had done some integration and so on, but I think I chose hopefully the right track by saying, hey, we have voice, we add meeting on top of it, and you can kind of get all the UC part together. So yeah.
I think Teams Phone has matured significantly over the last years. Where do you think it stands today compared to traditional PBX systems?
Oh yeah, that's an interesting one because I mean, I'll probably get a lot of unpopular from different non-Microsoft people, but I see the traditional PBX as dying brands that kind of have some small areas where it makes sense to have the PBX, but as a majority enterprise users, Teams is the right solution for it. The PBX is fine for some major contact center thing, for some special learning, some campus, some hotels, and so on. So I see it more as a niche area that then I see it as a major one. And of course, it makes sense. I mean, traditional PBX are what we used to have, and of course, some of the manufacturers are trying to get a soft client and so on. But I mean, Teams is just it's just so easy because it's fully integrated in the entire Microsoft environment. I mean, that's what Microsoft to benefit for. Because I mean, now this is a recording, so I should be careful what I'm saying, and I can take wrong out of context. But in the beginning, a platform like Zoom was actually better than Teams.
Mm.
But Zoom was an independent product where Microsoft was fully integrated. You had the license, you had your identity, which I think is a key point here that Microsoft owned the identity across different applications and platforms. So yeah, I think that's what push it.
When what's the surprised organization when they move yeah, telephony into Microsoft Teams?
Uh, sorry, what surprised them? Um, I think some got surprised that their support organization needs to work on a different level. Um, Traditional, we had like the IT and we had the phone guys, and of course might be under the same manager. But sometimes they were not even in the same apartment and so on. But when you moved to Teams, you kind of adopt into the IT department more deeply in it. So some traditional phone guys, I was, adding up extension number when a new guy was coming up with a desk phone, or do some configuration like that. That part got moved into to the IT department, and I think that kind of was a wake up call for some of the companies what did migration. That hey, and now we are responsible for that. Um, and then again, I also think that we find out that a lot of IT people found out, okay, it's not rocket science. I mean, we have been used to, having the PBX guy standing down in the rack and change cabling and do the wiring and all that stuff. And it looks very complicated and different terms like PSN analog and all that stuff. But when you get it into the right management platform, it was kind of easy for them to do the maintenance on it. So
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest got you a surprise when we migrated from PX to Teams.
And can we say Teams Phone is now enterprise ready?
Oh, it's more than enterprise ready. I mean, I think the biggest problem is that with any other cloud services, Microsoft, develop from small scale and up to large scale, and a lot of competitors, and especially the ones that trying to keep live in the PBX world, are saying, yeah, you cannot do anything in Teams. But I mean, Microsoft, if you have a desk phone and you have everything set up, they guarantee you 99.999% uptime. I mean that's more than enterprise scale. So yeah, we are way beyond what I would say a regular enterprise scale. And functionalities. I mean, you can do all basic functionalities as you could on a regular old time PBX on it. Um, and of course, you need to rely on some third party applications. But I mean, let's face it, in the PBX, you also had to do it. I mean, if you were buying a wire, you could buy an add-on contact center on top of it. If you're buying Teams, you can buy an add-on application in front of it. So I mean, it's the same with Teams, and you have all the core voice functionality, all the basic features, and then some. But if you need something special, yeah, you are still going to the third-party application. But that's also what we get in the PBX days. So it's definitely more than enterprise ready.
Okay.
And I think right now it's the largest voice installation in the world. I've been for a while now. So yeah, definitely enterprise ready.
Yeah, you're deeply experienced with zip and direct routing. Can you explain why zip still matters in a cloud first world?
Oh yeah, I mean, direct route is, if we go back, I mean, there's some history about it. When Microsoft started up, they also tried to be a provider, and they had some trouble back and forth, and I mean they were competing with some of their partners as well, and they decided to come with what they call direct route. What direct route is that you get your own provider and or have your own PBX, and you need to buy a certified session border controller, and a session border controller is kind of a voice routing firewall for if you look at it infrastructure ways, and that one can connect your phones up to the cloud, both Skype Online or Teams. And Teams, it was called Direct Route. So pretty much what it does is that we have the option to make PSN calls to and from Teams, and we have a box in front of it where we can control everything. We did it a lot when we were migrating. So let's say that you are a company with, let's say, 1,000 users, and you don't want to do a big bang where you move everything. You just want to go department per department. Then you put a session border controller in front of it. So you have the PBX connected, you have your carrier, and you have Teams on it. And then, like basic IT routing, you just say, hey, if that address or number is coming in, send it to Teams or send it to PBX and vice versa and so on. And that was and still is the biggest benefit of direct route is that you as an administrator is control, and you can do whatever you want or whatever is possible with this one as long as you are following some standards that are defined.
Mm. And
So yeah,
there
direct route is getting number one.
are there some common misconceptions about direct routing? Mm,
I think I think the biggest problem is that, I mean, a lot of people. I mean, let's say it's a big installation platform that we have in Teams, and there's a lot of people playing around with it. And if you misunderstand direct routing or you don't configure it correctly, it's easy to say that it's rubbish and it's not good. Um, in my opinion, it is still the best way of getting phone numbers into Teams. I know a lot of people are with the new with the new operator connect and so on. I knew it's not new anymore, but I mean, I think still it's the one where it's flexible and you can do whatever we want on it. And of course, when there are many choices, many configurations, there's also a lot of people that misunderstand what it actually is and how it can use it, and think that they could do more than they actually can
mm,
do with it. So you need to know the limitation, of course, like anything else.
yeah. There it's, I say, the epic fight, operator connect versus direct routing. How do you help customers to choose what's the best solution for them?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I mean, um, if we go back before Operator Connect, we had Direct Route and we had Microsoft numbers, and Microsoft sorry, Microsoft numbers was fully integrated into to Teams admin platform. You can see a list of numbers, and you have so many easy configuration options on it where you didn't have a direct route, because I mean you didn't have any guarantee about the numbers with a direct route because you as an administrator was assigning numbers and so on. Then Microsoft kind of could see that in the back and forth with should Microsoft be a provider, shouldn't it? Then they introduced Operator Connect, and Operator Connect was kind of the same idea as Microsoft phoning, but with a carrier that was certified. So now you can suddenly begin to get a ton of different carriers that you could port your number or migrate your number to, and then you could get them into the Teams admin center and have the benefits of all the functionality because it was a unique number. You were guaranteed that was the only number that you had, and you can see them in drop down lists. It was easy. There were some troubling in the beginning where you have to define if a number was a user or a auto attendant or application number. Sorry, you still run into some issues with that. And again, I think it's a very, very great solution. It's easy to get up, and you have the option to negotiate with your provider about pricing and so on. Well, Microsoft is kind of it's a license you put on top of it, and we all know that that's once a year, once every third year, whatever you're negotiating with Microsoft, that's where it is. Well, it was easier to have a provider you can work with, but there are still some limitation. I was talking a lot about going to Operator Connect. I think it was a great idea because you have all those options. But Microsoft luckily changed that all the fixed numbering and so on, that part was including in direct route now. So we can work as easily with direct route numbers as we can in Operator or Microsoft numbers. Um, I still see some limitations in Operator Connect when we do migrating or if we do multiple numbers. Because I mean, again, it's a way that Microsoft a guarantee it's a unique number, and you can only assign it to a country location as where the number is from. So let's
Mm,
say that you have a Spanish user and he needs to have a Spanish number. Well, then his location needs to be Spain. So in some scenarios, that kind of can give some problem, especially if we talk about large-scale companies that are all over around the world, and you're moving employees from one country to another, but they're still homed in a different country and assigning numbers. So there's still some limitation in Operator Connect. Um, I'll still say that, I mean, if you're new to Teams Voice and just want something that works and know people's thoughts about it, Operator Connect is awesome. But if you want to judge configuring and manipulating and do your own cool stuff and so on, I am still a big fan of direct routing.
mm. Did you think there are, on the next 5 years, still scenarios where hybrid voice still makes sense? Or
Yeah, I mean, we see them less and less, and we see more and more provider going to Operator Connect as um, as the primary product. Um, I don't think we will see it completely erased in 5 years. I mean, we were still saying that we will never see a fax, and that was at 15 years ago, and sadly, we still hit once in a while a fax machine. So,
mm,
um, I think kind 5 years, no, that's too fast. We will still have direct routing. We still have the option of migrating between platforms and so on. I mean, you still have some of the major companies. I mean, they might change the phone solution every 15, 20 years and so on. And we still see some of them that are POCing and asking into, oh, is Teams the right way of doing it? And when you look into large scale installation like that, that's where direct routing is just the perfect way because you can manipulate and you can route numbers one by one and all the benefits I was mentioning in the system border controller. So yeah, 5 years, no, no, 100% sure we still need direct routing. Yeah.
Mm, from your working experience, what there one team voice project you say this was really my amazing? You can tell without client name or so on. Is there any story you can tell us?
I mean, the problem when you do a lot of this is it's not something where you can tell company names and so on. But I mean, I've been involved in a rather cool project where I think we had 150 sites worldwide, and we did everything. I mean, we started migrating from local PBXs into a Skype for Business solution. That itself was cool. That was back in the good old Skype days. We did the migration. I mean, again, with 150 sites worldwide, we are moving everything up to codes in EMEA, US, and APACs, and so on. So I mean, the traditional old school setup we have our own data centers and so on. So, and the second we were done with that, Microsoft Teams was introduced, and we kind of just started all over in small steps. Again, in some sites, we need to wait to Teams being modern enough and have the right feature set and so on. So I think that's probably the coolest installation I've done is because I mean we did everything in two steps and we pushed on and used all the technologies that was included in Microsoft portfolio from PBX to on-prem to cloud solution. Um, and of course, I mean, when you're working worldwide, uh, you have some country that's easier than other. So I mean, of course, that also gave a lot of experience and a lot of funny late migrations or stubborn migrations or problems importing numbers and so on. Because some country have their own way of handling phone numbers. Some have a local regulation. I don't think it's any secret, but India is definitely more exciting to port and make telephony in some of the European countries where everything's just next, next, next and works. Where some we need to look into routing and even international routing and so on. So that put a lot of fun and long nights into to configuring sites like that. So, yeah.
So I think a little bit about the future. So I don't like to call with my team leader. So when can I do this for me? No, joke. What will you think what impact will AI have, especially in voice and meetings in the next years?
Huge, huge. And I think this is kind of the worst time that we have the podcast in because a lot of the stuff that are coming is not GA. Some of it is showing on. I mean, we thought that that kind of telephony was done. We didn't see for the last half a year, 9 months. We didn't see any real new cool functionalities was coming into to telephony, so it was kind of flattening out. But Microsoft are introducing a lot of AI, and one of the things they have shown and talked about public is the personal assistant, meaning that you've probably seen some of Apple have introduced their personal system. We're calling them an iPhone, and Google have done some of their own. Right, Chiefs are coming with the same. Where I mean, if somebody is calling me, they don't get hold of me. There's a PA that kind of intervenes the call and asks, okay, what is this about, and is it important, and so on. So I have to option to see if I actually want to pick up my phone or if it's something that, hey, let my PA, a personal assistant, handle that one and maybe schedule a meeting of go to a voicemail and so on. So a lot of great stuff happening right now in AI and voice. So that's really excited. Again, that was keeps me going. I think that this is a awesome area to work with.
Mm,
We can see that Dynamic 365, a lot of AI stuff are doing it, and I mean, I think for a couple of years ago when Microsoft was introducing that Dynamic will be their contact center, they had a demo where they, best Microsoft style was saying, "Hey, a customer is calling into the Xbox customer service and so on, get an AI to ask questions and get hold of the right agent and again collect all the information so the human agent didn't
mm,
need to ask for a lot of stuff.
mm,
And then we see that already rolling out GA and even more stuff are coming. I mean, a lot of configuration in Dynamics 365 contact center is done by Copilot Studio. And I mean, that's kind of where the imagination is the limit. Of course, it's not that's great yet, but in the future that will be so. So yeah, AI is definitely something where we'll see a huge impact in the voice area.
mm.
I mean, just today, if you have a call, I mean, Copilot for phone, that where you can get a resume when you and I are talking. If I transfer the call to a colleague, that resume will follow the call, so my colleague can see, okay, what have I discussed with the client or the customer about, and he or she doesn't have to ask the same things. Definitely a lot of AI on the phone card now, and even more and greater stuff are coming soon.
And so I think there's the Teams rooms, they have exploded in popularity. Um, why are meeting rooms suddenly strategic again?
I think we see a lot of company that are taking their workforce back into the company. I mean, we saw after COVID that hey, we could work from home and work is not a place and so on. We still see some companies saying, hey, we want you to work in the office again 3 or 4 days a week or so on. And the hybrid workplace is still there, but there are some restriction on it. And then when we meet together, we begin. We need to have the meeting rooms where we actually can work and interact. And uh, again, across our organization or across different organization. And let's face it, that hardware is not as expensive as it has been. I'm not saying that it's still free or anything like that, but we see to get a chief room up running, it's not as expensive as it was in old time. Plus, that we see the demand for the hybrid working and the ability to interact with more than just voice back and forth are exploding at the moment. And we see more and more advanced meeting rooms come up where people are using more AI like facilitator, recap, all that stuff are in there. Voice recognition are being pushed out now. So I mean, um, Microsoft will recognize who's in the meeting room, who has said what, and so on. So even if we are five people in the meeting room, we still do the recap where it's put persons on who is saying what and so on. And, I mean, who's bringing coffee and cake for the next meeting, for example. If five people were saying, "Hey, I do that," it will recognize and so on. And a lot of that is just saving a lot of time. I mean, people that normally were sitting and take resumes and do recap and so on by hand or sitting with a note or Word opening a meeting and sitting and typing, all that part is automatically. And I think that companies are finding out that if we just sit into a meeting room and start those functionality with all our advanced um, meeting rooms equipment, we'll just save time on it. So yeah,
Awesome. And when you give a yeah, future outlook, I think in the next year, is there what did you think will change most in team rooms?
definitely the AI. Definitely how much AI we are putting in. I mean, in meeting rooms, we have had the term AI for years and years. I mean, every manufacturer have the AI camera where it's automatic framing, and it's using some artificial intelligence, and we can do active speaker and all that part. But I mean, in my world, we begin to see real AI now. When you begin to have agents, I mean, Microsoft is just exploding in agents, and we begin to have agents that are joining into meetings like facilitator, and we get even more and more advanced. If we see some of the manufacturer coming out with the hardware now, especially on the Windows part, it's kind of powerful machines that are out there that are ready to do a lot of calculation on sites on the device itself. And I think it's just a matter of time before we begin seeing that being used instead of anything it's done in the back end of the cloud. And when that happens, we begin to put even more demanding AI tasks out in it. Um, I think Microsoft have previewed in one of the conference that you will get an agent that are actually listening into the meeting. And if you have unanswered question, that one can help you with it. So let's say that I'm sitting talking about, say, hey, what's the conversion rate from euros to dollars? For example? Well, nobody knows that. That one we could kick in and answer questions like that. So I mean, more and more AI that are interacting into the meeting's contents. I think that's really where a lot of stuff will happen here for next year.
If there are difference between, I think, mobile teams like Android or iOS or and Windows-based rooms or I don't know, macOS, I don't know. Is there the difference?
Yeah, I mean that has just been the question for, I think, the beginning of all teams meeting. Which platform should you use? Which one is being developed on? Which one have the feature set? And I think that it's kind of stabilized now. That I mean, new features are coming to Windows, and quite soon after it will be deployed on Android. Meaning that if you want to have the cutting edge new, you need to be in the Windows one. But again, a Windows is a more complex setup than it is to an Android. I mean, if we see all the bars where you just have the cameras and microphone and speaker all in one. All of them are pretty much
Mm.
based on Android. So what I see on a lot of the large scale rollout is that 90% of all rooms are based on Android because it's really simple and cheap and fast to roll out. And then when we have the more complex room or board rooms or something like that, then we go in and do a Windows installation. And of course, some has a religion on it, say, hey, we don't want any Android in our organization, so we do everything in Windows, and vice versa. Said, hey, we keep it on Android platform. And of course, there are manufacturers that can kind of fix any solution, but it's kind of interesting. Historically, I was discussing a lot with the security departments when coming to Android. Say, hey, we're not going to have Android. We're not going to have any Android phones, and we're not going to have that. And that has been back and forth, and tried to get them to understand that MTR Android device is not the same as an Android phone and so on. Of course, it's Android, but there's a lot of difference on it. Where luckily Microsoft has developed MDEP, which is kind of an OSP on top of it. That's kind of Microsoft's Android version. And I think it's from, is it 2027? All certified devices should be MDEP or something like that. I can't remember all the dates on it. But that's kind of even uh, level the Windows version Android even more, if you ask me, because then Microsoft are on top of the operation system on that both platforms. I mean, people that knows me knows that I have a little weakness for Autopilot because I mean I think Autopilot together with Windows NTRs is just the best way of rolling out because you can literally do zero touch provisioning or meeting rooms where you cannot do that on Android at the moment because there's a lot of technicalities. Where I'm hoping that when Microsoft begins owning also the operation system on those devices, that they will roll in some kind of autopilot function like thing on it. So, but yeah, I mean, historically, it has been a battle of the operation systems, and again, um, it depends of time. It depends of which one I'm preferring. Right now, I love the Windows as a zero touch provisioning, but again, it's so nice and cheap to roll out Android devices if you do not scale rollout as well. So yeah, it's so some like it one and the other one like the other one, but yeah, um, it's difficult to find a winner here.
Yeah. Um, w what most common mistakes companies make, yeah, when they're designing a meeting room from your perspective?
My perspective is that I definitely don't want to point fingers in it because the AV integrators are doing a very great job, but missing to involve the entire IT organization. Because I mean, let's face it, in old days, you had a ship meeting room and you just type in a couple of addresses and you make sure that the infrastructure was there. It's way more complicated today as it is because we're working with accounts that are actually, well, in Intra, it is a user account. I know that in a very near future, we'll get passwordless, but as it is right now, we have devices that are under the same policies in Intunes that also needs to be compliant. They need to sign in the right way, where we need to look into how do they make it sure. What about MFA, for example? I mean, that's probably the biggest mistake that we see now is that people are integrating meeting rooms without really understand 110% about the security and all the things around it and how we secure accounts and make sure that no bad operator has access into it or can do anything in it. So yeah. So that basic configuration is and I mean, I have one of my I really hate it because I mean, Microsoft has this
Yeah.
basic meeting room license, and
Mhm.
of course, I understand why they have it. Marketing wise, Zoom have it. They need to have a free license on it. The problem is that none of the none of the security are in it. So I see somebody that are doing POCs and hey, everything works. Of course, the limitation that are on the basic license, but they can still sign in a room and then say, yeah, we want to go. We are on a pro license, and then all the backend and Intunes and compliance policies are not in place and nothing works. And again, so the biggest issue or problem here is base configuration. Yeah, when introducing NTRs.
Is there something I think when we talk about these topics, we have governance and security. Is there something special in Teams telephony companies must look on, or is it, I don't know, it's the same like all other?
Yeah, I mean, we need to make sure that we kind of isolate and define and say which one is our phone and meeting rooms because I mean it's based on the same rules and so on. If it's Android device or if it's an MTR or if it's an Android phone, but we need to make sure that we kind of isolate them and have control on our and doesn't follow the same rules because I mean we see companies that I totally understand. We want an Android device. We want at least 6 digits on a PIN code for access and so on and if we try to push rules like that on top of Teams voice devices or meeting room devices, it will of course never be compliant because luckily we don't have a pin we need to type in and so on. So I mean that's pretty much the biggest one is that going to devices we need to make sure that we are on top of all our rules. And of course, a greenfield installation is always easier. The biggest problem is that we come with an organization. Hey, now we want to introduce Teams phones, and we have those devices we want to put on. Yeah, okay. What kind of Intune rules? What kind of compliance setup do we have? And we see a load of different rules and so on. So that is probably the biggest task to make sure that we fit right in and push the right rules and exclude the ones that we definitely don't need to. I mean, luckily Microsoft are becoming better and better, have great documentation on it. But again, we see this as I was going back when we have the PBX guy and we have the IT guy when we put the Teams voice into the IT department. We see that the same here that the security compliance department doesn't have the same understanding on voice or meeting devices and vice versa. That the people that are working with those one needs to understand that they are hitting so many other rules that they need to at least work closely together with the compliance and security team because I mean, Teams devices go hand in hand with compliance and security now.
Okay. And when we say you have fixed Teams problem, and then Genie comes and says you have one wish free, what Microsoft should add to Teams, what feature will you should Microsoft add to Teams?
Now I'm part of a lot of tap, but it's early adopter, and all my wishes are actually close to come true. I think one of them that we can talk about now is the passwordless accounts. Again, talk about all the compliance that we need to go in and insurance devices and so on. Of course, that's because we are trying to secure account that has a username and password. Microsoft here, and again, I'm not going to say any dates. That's what I've learned from Microsoft. But after summer, sometimes they are beginning introducing passwordless accounts that we can put on devices like meeting rooms or desk phones and so on. And I think that that's one thing that just will help deployment and daily maintenance of devices a lot. So that is close to one of the wishes that I have. If I only had one, and luckily that one is coming very soon.
Well, thank you for this conversation. This was really amazing, and yeah, I'm happy to learn more about Microsoft Phone and so on. So my last question is, what should IT leaders prioritize first? User experience, governance, or security when they start with Microsoft Phone?
That's a different, difficult one to put on top because I mean, one of my close areas is security. I mean, I think that we should do way more than we do on security, and that's what I'm talking a lot about. And when I'm out talking with customers or talking with integrators and so on, that's remember the security.
W-
Uh, and again, but security is not nothing works if the user don't have it. So I think it's kind of a mix on make it secure so we don't get in any bad behaviors in via the UC channels. But still, adoption is something that also is very dear to me because uh, I think the biggest problem is to educate the users to actually understand and use the product. A lot of it is self-explanatory, but I mean, let's face it, if we look into something of the AI functionality come, you need an introduction to it. You need to know what you can do before, during, and after meetings and so on. So I think it's kind of a mix of security and compliance. That will be the IT people's and the decision makers' top priority right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. This was a really great session. Yeah, hope we have another talk when the AI features are out.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. And all the cool stuff coming very soon, definitely.
And yeah, so then have a nice day. Bye. And yeah,
Uh,
thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.